With the recent Commando rework, there are lots of questions surrounding this tower. But while other YouTubers were talking about its stats and whether it was worth it, I was figuring out the best ways to use Commando. So in this video, I'll be giving you the complete guide to the Commando tower. Now, because of the Commando's placement cost of $2,250, the Commando is not going to be a very useful early game tower because you will need so much money to place it. So the Commando is more of a mid to late game tower when it comes to matches. Now, another thing that you should know about the Commando is that it does not have hidden detection. So it's never going to be great DPS wise against hidden enemies. However, this isn't a problem for the Commando if it is used correctly, and I'll explain that more in detail in just a bit. Now, the Commando tower does actually have two primary uses. Use number one is as a sub DPS tower, and use number two is as a crowd control tower. Now, let's talk about what these two uses mean. First, let's discuss its uses as a sub-DPS tower. You may be asking yourself, what even is a sub-DPS tower? Well, sub-DPS towers are towers like Golden Soldier, which deal a good amount of DPS and typically don't have a placement limit. They're typically paired with towers like Accelerator, who do have a placement limit. They're placed after you have maxed out all of your accelerators as another source of DPS. The Commando is a perfect example of this since it can be placed after you finish maxing out all of your other DPS towers because it does have a good level of sub DPS. Now, Commando's next use is going to be for crowd control. Not only does Commando have a missile ability, which is great crowd control and can stall enemies, but it also has piercing damage, which makes it even more of a viable option when it comes to dealing with hordes of enemies. Because of these things, Commando is quite a good crowd control tower, and that should be its primary use. Also, because of its piercing ability, Commando also can do good crowd control at low level, so do not be afraid to spam low level commandos to deal with early hordes. Now, one problem with Commando's Pierce is it is incredibly map reliant and will not work if it's not in a map that it can shoot down a straight line. So if you plan to use Commando at low levels for crowd control, definitely make sure that you choose a good map. Now that we've gone over Commando's two main uses, it's time to talk about the most unique and powerful part of this tower, which is its missile ability. Now, this ability is without a doubt what makes Commando so OP. So it's important to master this ability in order to fully utilize Commando. Now, there are two main methods to utilizing this ability, and the first one is of course using it on large crowds in order for crowd control. Now, here's something to remember, okay? Only use this ability and method for crowd control. Do not use this to try to target one singular boss, because after a boss is stunned, it will not be able to be stunned for a good bit of time. So this thing is not for single target. This missile is almost strictly for crowd control. However, for the second method I'm about to talk to you about, it actually can be used as a boss stunner. Now, the second method to maximize a boss stalling time will be to place the missiles slightly apart. This will allow the boss's time to get re-stunned after they are stunned. This is a good method if you want to deal with heftier bosses. Now that you know the basics of using the missile ability, we must now go into the final part of Commando, which is how to counter hiddens. The two best methods for countering hidden enemies are of course going to be bombing them, or you can always utilize the Pierce in order to hit them. Now, if this is too difficult for you, there is another way. This is of course using Ace Pilot's passive ability to give the Commando hidden detection. By using these tips and tricks and a bit of intuition, you should be able to fully master the Commando. Without further ado, I hope you enjoyed the video. Glitched out.